At 1 a.m, the doctor comes in, and I'm just zoned out because so overdrugged at that point. And he tells Gabe and I, he's like in the doorway, and there's like a silhouette with a light behind him. And he just says, "Hey, we've been looking over your son, and we see signs of Down syndrome in your baby." And Gabe and I just kind of look at each other. Still, I'm completely drugged, and I just looked at each other, and we fell right back asleep. We didn't even have capacity to process that information. We were still like getting through the day. So we had waited 6 days for the results, and we had to go home. And so that 6th day was my husband's birthday, actually, and we get a phone call from the doctor calling with the results. And my husband took the call, took the information, and then I'm like walking out of the shower, and I see his face, and I know it's confirmed. And in that moment, I just collapsed. And it was some expression of travail. It was just like wail. But even in that, it was so kind, because what I knew is that in shedding, like even grief of whatever that meant, it was like a transfer was happening. He was taking my pain upon himself. And it just reminded me of the cross, where Jesus is like, I thirst for all like your pain, your anguish, your grief, your sadness, your confusion, your fear. And instead, I credit you. I credit you with my peace. I'm going to credit you. I'm going to give you grace. I'm going to give you strength. I'm going to give you rest. And so I felt like the transfer was happening, even in the tears. Like he was taking it upon himself, and instead giving me everything that he offers us in every moment that we're devastated, right? Whatever that looks like. Wiped my eyes and got in the car, and I remember driving to the hospital knowing this, like we're about to get to see him again, but we know the future looks different. And I just said, it's kind of like we have no idea. We have no idea what God has, but we know this is his will, and we know that he works all this together for our good and his glory. So then I got to see Cade knowing that we were both in this adventure together. And when I held him that day, I just remember like his little sky blue eyes looking at me, just saying, "Hey, Mama, are you going to love me for me? Not for what I can do or accomplish, what milestones I can meet, but just me." And I realized how much I had like performed for love with God, and how much I had thought that my love was conditioned on my latest accomplishment. It was just kind of, I grew up in a performance-based culture, and I think the Lord gave me Cade as my first child to teach me the unconditional goodness of God, the unconditional love of God. And he was going to teach me that as a mother through my child. Some of the first questions I got after people realized Cade's diagnosis was, how delayed will he be? What is his IQ? It wasn't that overt, but it was that idea. It was like, how severe are these different abilities, these special needs? Will he be able to walk? Will he be able to talk? And that's like asking any new mom, like, is your kid going to make honor roll, in 9th grade? I mean, nobody knows. Who can answer? And why would we? Why would we try to predict as if that were connected to a value of Cade, like that's determinant of his value? But I realized that I probably had thought that with others. How severe is severe? How debilitating will this be? And we're trying to predict an unknown future so that we have some sense of control. At least if we kind of know how good or hard it's going to be, we can set ourselves up. But I think it was God's kindness for me to not know at all. Because at that point that I knew, we were just fighting for him to live. And as a result, I got to start there and then focus on today. Here's what I know for today. His tongue is the only muscle we can see. His tone is so low, he can't latch on, he can't nurse. So my job as a mom, day 1, week 1, week 2, 3, 4, 5, is to just try to get him to latch on to nurse at some point so that he'll go from 4 pounds to 8 pounds to 12 pounds. And so he didn't latch on for 9 weeks. I remember one day just trying again over his crib, and I tried to get him to latch on, and I froze, and I just stood there, and he did for the first time, 9 weeks in. And I just held him and did not move a muscle and just cried the whole time And then that began 13 months of him nursing and getting to be the fattest little fatty, cute little towhead you've ever seen. And it just reminded me, God just kept showing me through his life, like, I'm going before you and I'm bringing people around. Just there's grace for today. And I felt guilt for being sad initially with that diagnosis because I just was so terrified of what to do. But then down the road, I felt so grateful that even God's kindness to me in that, like not knowing there's a whole tribe, a whole sorority of special needs mamas that I now belong to, and that it didn't mean that I lost my other friendships. It just meant that life got fuller and I had more compassion and empathy to see all of it. And I felt like that was a gift. The first time it was so terrifying. But years later I reflected, I believe God gave us Cade because he knew 13 years later there'd be a joy and that we'd say yes.